And I'm gonna say this, that they're gonna become very they're gonna rise to the top as you're going through building this foundation, right? For your company. So as you've built out your foundation on what you want, you're going to see that, working with a team that's in-house can be a little bit easier for you if you have the right tools in place, that consistent training model. You've got somebody on your enablement team that's able to give time and energy to building an SDR hiring program. You have the right recruiters in place, the right leadership in place that can recruit and onboard SDRs to come in house. Because don't forget, even with outsourcing, and I'll touch on this too, outsourcing moves a little bit quicker with hiring, right? They've got a gamut of SDRs that they're working with. Whereas with in-house, you're going to have to go out, farm in some of those SDRs, go through the interview process, expect some of them to not make it through the process, or decide at the last minute that they don't want to come work for you, right? And that's okay too. But you have to have like a good interview process in place, a good recruiting process in place, an onboarding process in place. And you're also you're going to need to understand that with SDRs, they are going to need a leader in place too. And if you're planning on having SDRs just roll into your VP of sales, your VP of sales is going to be, or your VP of marketing is going to be very focused on their strategic initiatives. SDRs need and require a lot of time and energy walking them through processes and tools and navigating what happens if this prospect says this, what happens if a prospect says that. If you have all of that ready to go, or you want to build that, then in-house is the way to go. Also, if you've got a plethora of MQLs that need to be called through, I recommend going in-house and keeping your data in-house as well. Setting up the right mechanisms and SFDC around leads views and reporting structure, meaning counting through metrics and being able to follow through on a dashboard, is much easier in-house. And pulling levers and making quick changes is very easy to do in-house as well. However, outsourcing has its pros as well around, look, they can hire SDRs, as mentioned, like super quick, get them up to speed on what your product is. But with outsourcing, what I will say, and they're only focused on your organization too. So they don't have to worry about going to marketing meetings. They don't have to worry about going to sales meetings. They're just there to smile and dial. So if you're looking for quick progression and pipeline builds, outsourcing is the right mechanism for you. I will say this too, if you're expanding out globally as well, outsourcing agencies allow you to hire different languages and skill sets depending on if you're going after a new total addressable market without you having to scope out looking for someone that speaks Spanish, French, or German, right? Because the likelihood of finding someone that speaks all three languages for your in-house SDR and you only have budget for one headcount is very unlikely, where you can split that budget up, go outsource, and get 3 people that speak those different languages. Something to consider there too. A negative really around outsourcing is that they're just super expensive, right? And they're never really, as much as you want to try to be integrating them into your team, it's hard sometimes for someone that could be A, either sitting in a different time zone, or B, not interacting with people on Slack. So to really make that mechanism, and I can talk about this in a little bit too, you really have to integrate them in to see them be successful, setting up those weekly meetings with them. And it can be a little bit awkward. So I'll say that could be a negative as well. In-house negatives is kind of what I did talk about earlier, is like you have to have all these processes in place. You have to build it. Outsourcing, yes, you have to build it, but they've got their hiring process. You have to build the content and make sure that they're using it properly. But once it's built, they're just turn and burn, right? Like they're calling and they're using that same content. Whereas in-house, you're constantly iterating with the SDRs. They're getting influence from sales. They're getting influence from marketing meetings. They're getting influence from their AEs and even from their own SDR managers. So something to consider. In-house, though, I will say is a little less expensive because you are actually creating a career journey for them in the sense that you can promote them up. They can grow within your organization. You get a better bang for your buck promoting internally than you do externally hiring. So I will say that there's definitely some pros and cons to both. I've done both before. I've even done in-house and had outsourcing for the EMEA team as described, right?
Yeah.
Another con though to outsourcing that I will say is that you really have to have them integrated into your tools. You're going to have to give them access to CRM. You're going to have to provide them with the same reporting. Some outsource agencies that I have worked with do their own outside reporting and don't want to bring it in. And that's where I get a little bit weary on, well, why can't we just have them adopt what we're doing over here so that they have some mechanism to be integrated with the organization. So stay really on top of how well their team can be integrated into your team, and whether or not that SDR manager that you've created in-house can actually manage that outsource agency. I've seen many times, VPs of marketing and sales say, we're going to outsource this, but then they don't have the time to manage the outsource process. And then they're upset that they've spent this 12 months of pay on this outsourced agency and they didn't get what they wanted out of it. But it's because they didn't stay on top of it.
Yep.
And they needed to really be involved. You still have to be very, very involved. I would say more so with even outsourcing. So keep that in mind, that it's a lot easier to sometimes message your internal employees than outsourcing allows you to do so. So that's another thing that you really have to be on top of, is how much time you're going to have to give to that outsource agency as well.